Good evening. My name is Ashley Clark, and I will be discussing should the U.S. law permit the use of torture tactics against detainees related to the war on terror. According to the National Journal, President Obama has defended releasing CIA memos which proved that torture tactics were being used during the Bush administration. Obama has called waterboarding torture. Waterboarding is an enhanced interrogation technique which stimulates drowning on the victim. One memo showed that the CIA interrogators used waterboarding at least 266 times on suspected Al-Qaeda leaders. During the Bush administration, the top lawyers of the country from the Justice Department drafted paperwork to authorize this use of enhanced interrogation techniques. These documents were endorsed by the Attorney General, as stated in the Harvard International Law Journal. The U.S. attended the Geneva Convention and signed treaties against torture for a reason. Our country believes that every human is entitled to certain fundamental rights. The U.S. signed Article 3 of the Convention against torture and other cruel or degrading treatment or punishment. The U.S. struggled with how to fight the war on terror. There is not a clear enemy in a specific place. The President's advisors came up with a desperate way to fight. Supporters of using torture on detainees argue that there is typically time-sensitive information that could save innocent lives. There may be a ticking time bomb about to go off. This affirmative position asserts that the end justifies the means, which basically means you can do whatever you want as long as you're saving lives in the process. Okay, this justification for abuse of basic human rights is flawed. Torture is not new or creative. It is an old barbaric method that our highly advanced nation should do away with. More accurate and useful information can be gathered from the detainee's property at the time of arrest. If the U.S. withdraws our ban on torture, we are lowering ourselves below our enemies and becoming the terrorists. The U.S. must remain the leader and the example nation. We must not become the terrorists by stooping to these degrading interrogation tactics. There are moral tactics available as an alternative to torture. The U.S. must take advantage of the intelligence we have available to our country. We must monitor terrorist groups. We must monitor arms sales. If the U.S. law permits torture, then it will be an acceptable interrogation tactic. All those who are arrested could be subject to enhanced interrogation techniques. The interrogators who use torture will not have to stand on trial for this inhumane technique. The harm done to our country's fundamental beliefs would be severe if we authorized torture, as long as it was in the name of saving lives. The U.S. must not allow the use of torture against detainees in its effort to obtain information in the war on terror. The U.S. should continue to uphold its ban on torture. Torture is immoral, and the U.S. must not participate in immoral acts. Torture opposes justice. That's all. Thank you for your time, and have a good evening.